We want to talk more about John McCain's speech today with a guest who was part of our program yesterday. So good, we invited him back. Mike Long is his name, and he's a former speechwriter on Capitol Hill in Washington and now the director of the White House Writers Group. Good morning once again, Mike.
Hi, Heather. It's good to be back.
Thank you for coming back. You know, no one's expecting John McCain to be elected solely on the basis of his skills as an orator. So how did he do last night?
Well, you know, he did all right considering he had to follow the night before Caribou Barbie. So I think that on the whole he did all right. Two speeches he delivered. The first half, not so good, the policy stuff. Second half, the story about his personal history, his POW story, strong stuff, very inspiring.
Yeah, really soul-bearing from him, and that was when we saw the crowd really responding to him. The message that we heard from him, that we keep playing clip over and over again, change is coming. So here he is trying to rebrand the party, recast the party as and himself as an agent of change. Was he convincing in that last night?
In some ways he was. Emotionally, yes. Programmatically, in terms of the details, no way. The thing that happened was he goes through a list up at the top of this speech, excuse me, of things that he wants to do, the proposals, the ideas, but they just come out in standard political speak. He says things like, my opponent will raise taxes, I'll lower your taxes. We'll be safe with me, we won't be safe with Obama. You know, anybody can say that stuff. What you got to do, especially on the economy, is name the things you want to do and how they will affect the lives of the people you want to vote for you. And he didn't do that.
So if you'd been writing his speech, how might you have cast that?
Well, what I'd do is I'd go through each thing I wanted to do. About when I say I'm going to cut taxes, my opponent's going to raise taxes. I would say, in general terms, what the income levels were that would be affected. I'd say that when I cut taxes, here's how much more different families will have in their pockets. I'd say those things. If I say, and this is a big thing for him, his big thing is cutting spending, cutting earmarks, getting rid of waste. Well, that sounds fine, but if you're somebody trying to make the rent, how does that really help you pay the rent? It doesn't, is the answer. And he didn't go through anything about connecting, and that's the problem. And I'm somebody on his side, and I'm saying that. So
interesting. So if we come back to the change notion for a second, if we think that's the message, and it appears to be that we're going to hear through this campaign, the other theme that I think we're going to hear is fight. Fight with me, stand up and fight. People were counting, and he said the word fight 43 times in the course of his speech. Why?
Wow, 43. That's pretty impressive.
That's a lot.
Well, I think this is an example of Republicans learning from Democrats over time. Republicans over and over go to experience. We have experience. We have experience. Well, nobody cares about experience this year. What they care about is what's going to happen in the future. And that's what Democrats have always talked about. You go back and look at Democratic campaigns for the White House, for the Congress. It's always, I'm fighting for you. I'm fighting for change. Well, McCain saw the parade and just leaped out in front of it. He said, I'm going to be the fighter. I'm going to lead for change. And that's what people, I think, this time especially want to hear.
We heard yesterday, and you and I talked, from Sarah Palin. We heard her 2 nights ago. We heard and talked about how she had energized the base with her speech. John McCain directly, very clearly reaching out beyond that to the television audience, I guess, to those undecided independent voters. Was he effective in that speech strategy, Mike?
I'm not sure. Again, it's going to be a few days before we know, but I tend to think that he only caught them on the emotion, not on the facts, and that's the sort of thing that can diminish over time. You know what I think he made as his biggest mistake is he didn't give us what I'd call a framing device in speech writing, which is just a fancy-sounding way to say he didn't state his theme clearly at the top of the speech. He didn't close stating his theme at the bottom of the speech. The theme of change and fighting for you didn't really appear until the last half of the speech. And the first half, we're getting a laundry list. That's no good.
So it sounds like you found some areas that were disappointing to you as both a Republican and also a speechwriting expert, and maybe some areas of improvement. So given that, I'm just wondering, what kind of an impact would you hope to get, the bump in the polls, from a convention speech? And what do you think this one will get?
Well, what I'd hope to get is that it's suddenly 100% for McCain and 0 for Obama. That's what I hope for. What I expect is that this race is going to be pretty much tied for a while now. I think you'll see in the next 48 hours McCain's up by a couple of points, maybe 4 points at the most. Not much more than that, and not for very long. people aren't going to decide this until something big happens, until something we can't anticipate changes the race, or people begin to fall one way or the other right before the election. But up until then, it's going to be close.
Good to have you back this morning. Thank you again, Mike.
Thank you very much, Heather.
And stay with us on CBC News Morning. More to come.